continue with the sad music here on Miami Total Football Radio, the show. And that's because things are still not going that well for one Inter Miami. Hello, everybody. Welcome on this late Thursday night here. Andrea Llanes, aka Ajicita, joins me, Franco Panizo, two of your usual co-hosts of this podcast, also known as Miami Total Football Radio, the show. This one is going to be a good one. We have a lot to talk about, which is why I'm just jumping into it very, very quickly here. Just getting to the chase here. But first, of course, Andrea, welcome. How are you?
Hi, nice to be back here on the podcast. We have a lot to discuss, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and you are in, I think, Jose's office, but we're seeing a different camera angle here. We see a picture of you and Jose over your left shoulder. We're seeing the Inter Miami Supporters Shield winners team poster behind you. This is a different look to Jose's office,
Yes, this
thanks
is a
to our
different
beloved
look.
Ajicita.
Jose has D-Wayne's last game and the credential for that season. Then is our credential, the one that was here, and that's Miami Dolphins. When they open their the new training center here in Miami. So yeah, a different glimpse at Jose's office because I'm using his microphone and everything, but I am using my chair, so it's a little bit different.
So
But
you've
yeah,
taken over. You've
it's
taken
but
over
you can see
for.
some of the. I'm taking over his microphone, his camera, everything. It's
There we go.
easier for me just to sit here.
That's good. That's good. We'll take
Yeah,
that. We'll
but
take
I'm
that.
happy to be back and Jose wanted me to say something because he said that when we made our predictions for these two games in the last podcast, he
He
said
did say
that
one
Inter
point.
Miami were
He did
coming
say
back
one
with a
point.
point.
He did
So
say that.
he told me to say that because he wanted to say
To
that he was
boast.
right.
Yes.
He wanted to gloat.
Yes, he wanted to boast, he wanted to gloat. Jose Armando not on the show this week, but he is here in spirit. And as you can see, he's in that picture over Andrea's left shoulder. So, of course, for those of you tuning in here late or listening to this after it's recorded, or even watching this after it's recorded, thank you for doing so. I know we're running late tonight, or we're starting late, but that's what the schedule's called for. It was also my birthday this week, so
Yeah,
um,
happy
yeah,
birthday
no,
to Franco.
thank you. No truth to the rumors that I was partying today, and I've just taken a quick intermission. Hence why the show's running late. No. There will be more partying to do this weekend. Inter Miami nicely gave me Saturday off, so they play Sunday this week. So I will go celebrate with some friends and family on Saturday. Although my birthday officially was on the 13th, it was Tuesday. Somehow I've turned 37 years old. I don't know how I've turned 37. I started covering soccer when I was 20, couldn't even drink, and somehow I'm sitting here 17 years later. Um, it's crazy. It's crazy. But anyway, Francisco Garcia in the comment section says, Buenas noches, estamos de puta madre, como diría el filósofo jefecito. Of course, Javier, he's referring to Javier Mascherano. We're going to talk about that, Andre. We're going to talk about uh, Javier Mascherano's comments from earlier in the week. We're going to talk about his overall state. We have a lot to talk about. We've got Messi to talk about, his run-in with the referee last night. We've got, Inter Miami in general coming away with a point that Jose, of course, predicted. Y lo tenía bien grabado. I had it well in the front of my mind last night that he got the prediction correct for how many points they would get during this road trip. Although he did say that they would tie in Minnesota. He didn't get that right. But anyway, so we've got to talk about the state of Inter Miami. We've got to talk about Luis Suarez. We've got to talk about Drake Callender. We have to talk about Baltasar Rodriguez. No relation to Jose Armando Rodriguez, but we have a lot to discuss, Andrea. A lot. So let's just get to it. Let's jump right into it. And before we do that, we have to also talk about Jordi Alba. But I do want to say, if you're new, if you're old, if you're watching, if you're listening, give us a like, a thumbs up, a subscribe, hit the little bell, help us grow. We are continuing to grow, but every follow we get Every view we get helps us tremendously to continue to provide this type of content. Club World Cup coming up. So we can continue to do this. It's absolutely free for you guys. All it takes is a click. So help us out if you can. All right, Andrea. We'll start. So much to talk about.
¿Con qué quieres empezar?
Yeah, that. I was really trying to like. Normally, I formulate how the show's roughly gonna go. Obviously we can get sidetracked based on conversation, but normally I have an idea. I map it out in my head, and this time it's a little bit trickier. I have somewhat of an idea, but there's just so much newsworthy stuff. Like it's only been like a week since we last recorded, but a lot to talk about. So vamos a comenzar. Yeah. All right. Let's start with Messi's referee run-in, right? Normally we start talking about Lionel Messi on this show. So let's talk about that last night, because I'm sure you've got an opinion on it. And after the game, well, I guess late in the game, as Inter Miami's trying to find a winner in what eventually was a 3-3 road draw against the San Jose Earthquakes on Wednesday night, Messi dribbling just outside the top of the 18-yard box. There's a challenge made on him. He goes down. Referee tells him to get up, does the gesture, like head referee Joe Dickerson does the gesture to get up. Messi obviously wanted a foul, raises his arms from the ground in frustration. After the match is over, when it goes final, Messi approaches Joe Dickerson and lo recrimina, right? He starts giving him some choice words about the decision to not call that.
Say the words. Eres muy malo, le dijo.
Did he say that? I don't know. I didn't hear that part. Did he say that?
Eres
Did he
muy
say
malo.
That? Yes. Oh, so okay. So if he told him, I didn't hear that, but if he told him eres muy malo, that would translate to you are very bad. Now, while Messi's jawing at Joe Dickerson just stares at him, tells him to leave. Eventually, Messi starts to walk away, but he still keeps chirping back at Joe Dickerson. And Joe Dickerson has enough. He pulls out the beloved tarjeta amarilla, yellow card for one Lionel Messi, which then bothers Lionel Messi even more. It pisses him off even more. So he goes back and continues to have more words for Joe Dickerson, to the point where Joe Dickerson, you see this on the broadcast, on the camera. Good job by Apple TV producers by staying on this these images, not panning away. But Joe Dickerson, he puts his arm to his back pocket, threatening the red card, and tells Messi, and clear as daylight on the TV broadcast, walk away now. Walk away now. He tells him twice. It took Bruce Arena to be the mediator. Beloved Bruce Arena to come in and save the day for Inter Miami. The San Jose Earthquakes coach had to come in and save the day for Inter Miami. He gets in front of Messi and kind of starts to guide him in the other direction. I don't know if Bruce Arena wasn't there. Maybe we see a red card for Messi.
And the most incredible thing is that they asked Bruce Arena this in his press conference, and he said that he went to try to dissuade Messi from getting a red card. And I'm like, why? He's the first coach in history, I think, that is advocating for the not para la no expulsión de un jugador rival. So it was just funny to see Bruce do that, because that wouldn't happen anywhere. But I guess Bruce knows that Messi is important. But let's be real here. That should have been a red card for Messi. Once he got his yellow card and he was left and then he came back, that's the second yellow card. That's textbook in the reglamento. Yeah, it's in the referees, in the rules, right, in the rule book. So yeah, Messi was just furious because of that foul that you're saying. And it was not the first time, because Messi wanted a foul also before that, a couple of minutes before that. And the referee told him, up, nothing, right? And Messi was mad because of that. And yeah, he was very mad with the referee. But for me, it's funny. It's just funny because, yeah, Bruce Arena advocated for him and took him away. Actually, he took him away and began walking with him. and left with him to the middle. And even when they asked Mascherano, he said that he didn't even notice what was happening. So Mascherano pasa de puta madre because he doesn't see anything that is happening, because he's just in his puta madre state all the time, so he doesn't notice what is happening. And
For the English speakers, I promise you at this show we will get to explaining why we keep saying the puta madre if you don't know the reason. And it's relevant to Inter Miami and a comment Mascherano said this week. It's actually part of the headline on this week's show. It says Messi and D.P.M, which would of course stand for de puta madre, but for all intents and purposes, this show D.P.M means defensive players' mistakes. So that's what officially D.P.M means on the headline. Wink.
Yeah, but Mascherano didn't even notice, and Bruce was on top of it, right? Bruce was saving MLS like he always does,
that's
right?
that's what I mean. 100%. I mean, he was being an advocate for MLS there, right?
Yes.
Right. He knows what a red card to Messi does, not only in terms of him not being available for the next game for Inter Miami and that taking away eyeballs and having an impact in Major League Soccer, even financially, but also the headlines it would draw if Messi got a red card post game in a Major League Soccer match. I mean, let's listen to Bruce Arena. You talked about his comments. I have it here. Let's listen to Bruce Arena here. Talk about the moment that has gone viral.
You were talking to Messi after was a little unhappy with the refs.
Yes, he was.
Was it about not
getting that's universal language when you're talking about referees, and everyone knows what the language is in discussing the referee. He was obviously not happy, and I wanted to make sure really he wasn't going to get a red card, and that's why I just tried to move him out of the way, because for him to get a red card at the end of the game would have been ridiculous. So I just wanted to make sure we get him out of there, and he's ready to play the next game for Miami.
Well done.
Good guy, Bruce,
listen,
I guess.
Bruce Arena with maybe the biggest save of Inter Miami season. I thought Oscar Ustari had the biggest save in the CONCACAF Champions Cup quarterfinals against LAFC, where he saves Inter Miami from possible elimination or very likely elimination in those dying seconds of the second leg. Well, maybe Bruce Arena just came up with the biggest save of the season without even being a member of Inter Miami. But Andrea, bigger picture, right? I mean, you say it should have been a red card. I think I'll say my piece. I think Messi very strongly flirted with the line there. Very strongly flirted, especially when Joe Dickerson has his hand on his back pocket, threatening the red card. But it would have taken.
Gives it to him.
But no, it would have taken. It would take a lot of stones from an MLS referee to red card.
Referee would have given, if you bring like El Fat, or you bring one of the likes Marrufo, one of those old school American referees, he would have 100%. They would have 100% given him a red card there, because it is disrespectful. It's against the rules, especially for referees now. And it's especially now with the rules. Of course, it happens, but with the rules that only the captain can speak to a referee. He's the captain, but the new rules say that the captain has to be respectful and calm. And Messi was everything but that, right? He was frustrated more than anything of being mad with the referee. I think he was just frustrated with the game, because it's another game that Inter Miami were not good enough, and another game that he didn't perform to the level that he would have wanted. I'm guessing, right?
So the comment section, Luis Lopez says the referee should have given. Sean Callahan adds, you can't dress down a ref after the games, do it during the game. Look, I think, again, like I'm going to reiterate.
And the worst part, he's going to be fined by MLS, or at least he should be fined by MLS, because he got a yellow card because he went directly to a referee. He got the yellow card. But the problem is that he went to midfield, he went to leave, and he came back. So that's a no-no. That's a second yellow card in everywhere. Anywhere in the game, that would have been the second yellow.
So I will say that I don't know if anywhere he gets a second yellow. I don't know. It's, again, to send off a player, even take away that it's Messi. To send off a player after the game has to be really, really bad. Now, did Messi flirt with the line? Yes, especially when you see Joe Dickerson has his hand to his back pocket. You're really, really pushing it there. But like I said before, and to round out the idea, it would take a lot of stones, a lot of balls, a lot of huevos to give Messi a red card for dissent after the game. It takes a lot. And Joe Dickerson, to me, it was an empty threat. Like he was suggesting he could do it, but he wasn't really gonna do it. Because if he wanted to do it, like you said, he could have done it. He could have done it, and he didn't. He thought about it and didn't act on it. So, but all the same, bigger picture, Andrea, you touched on it. It's another sign of frustration from Lionel Messi. It's the latest sign of frustration from the team, a team that is in a poor run of form. They've won 1 in their last 6 games across all competitions. They've lost 4 and tied 1 as well. Not a good run here for the South Florida side. And we will talk about Mascherano. We'll talk about the tactics. We'll talk about the player performances. But I just want to talk first about the emotional state. La situación o el estado anímico de Inter Miami right now. I mean, from what we've seen over the last couple of weeks since the Vancouver elimination, what's your takeaway on how Inter Miami is right now from an emotional standpoint?
They are frustrated. I think they are frustrated, and you can see, and I think they feel the pressure. Especially, you could see it in the game yesterday when Falcon scored that early on the game. They were celebrating and they were like ecstatic. And then with Allende with his 2 goals to tie the game, even he talked about it after with media over there that it was very important to him because he had a deep in confidence and all of that, right? So all the signs point to a team being frustrated, right? And stressed and it's normal because they got eliminated from CONCACAF, and as we were talking in some podcast after that, that was their competition, their most important competition that they could in reality win until the MLS playoffs, right? Important competition. So I think the players feel that. The players know that the coach was in a bad spot because of all the losses that they have, and the players know. With yesterday, I think that it's 17 goals, right? In the last 5 games, five or six,
I think so.
5.
Yeah.
So that's unacceptable. But and players know that, and especially because not only Inter Miami looks bad, but since Inter Miami games get so many eyes because of Messi, not just Inter Miami, but the league and everything looks bad. So you could see with the celebrations, especially how stressed and frustrated they are. At least in my opinion. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I will add to that in a second. Carla Beteta, who I think is her first time commenting, primera vez que comenta here on Miami Total Football Radio, says change técnico, which would mean change the coach. We'll talk about that, Carla, but I want to answer Andrea's question back to me, and I agree with you. I think it's very clear that this team están golpeados, right? That they're hurting, and that's been the case since the elimination to the Vancouver Whitecaps. You've seen it in different moments. You've heard it in different moments, in different ways, right? You could look at Messi walking off the field pretty abruptly in the win against the New York Red Bulls. We've talked about that on the last show. You can listen to Yannick Bright's comments, which I have here, which happened after we last recorded the most recent episode, where he kind of pushes back on Javier Mascherano's notion that he can't go 90 minutes. You hear Sergio Busquets tell DAZN that Inter Miami's not made for a big run at the Club World Cup, which is honest, which is real, but you don't normally get that type of truth, right? Like normally there's some player talk of like, oh, you know, we're going to compete and go as far as we possibly can, and you know, our goal is to get out of the group stage, like something like that. But the tone of the comments and of the just overall state of the team is clearly a negative one right now. It's clearly not a happy one, and that makes sense, right? They're not winning. Not only did they get eliminated, but they're not winning. They've kind of hit this funk, um, and they need to get out of it. So I think all of that is very clear. That takes us to Javier Mascherano's comments from, what was it, Monday? Yeah, Monday.
Yeah,
May
Monday.
12th, my last press conference as a 36-year-old, because my birthday was the next day. I asked Mascherano the question, about how Inter Miami's doing from an emotional standpoint. It was a very straightforward, simple question, not much to it. And his response was very surprising, right? Like, I thought he would have gone with the regular, yeah, we're in a rough moment, but we have an opportunity to get out of this on Wednesday, and we're confident and we're united that we can do. I thought he would say something along those lines, but his response was completely out of left field. So let's listen to it. This is where we can talk about the title of the show. We can talk about is it a better response than when Phil Neville went off on me? Is it better? I don't know. We'll talk about it. But let's listen to Mascherano's response to my question.
De puta madre. De puta madre estamos. De puta madre. Estamos muy bien. Estamos muy bien. De eso se trata el fútbol.
So, de puta madre, I mean, listen, for those of you who speak English, don't understand Spanish, or don't speak it. De puta madre is a vulgarity. It's bad words, right? Like, if someone's shouting at you puta madre and you don't know them, then take it that they're upset with you. Now, in this context, to say estamos de puta madre means like
They're good.
we're fucking good. Like, we're amazing, right? We're fucking amazing. And he says it 3 times, and he does it with a smirk on his face. And I don't think he said it like to be like, this is exactly how we are. I think it's just him. And he does touch on this, I think, later on. Like, he says, if you expect me to say anything negatively about the team, I'm not going to do that publicly, which I was just asking what the state of the team is, because we all see what the state of the team is. Again, I didn't expect him to say, oh, we're terrible, we're down in the dumps, but I expected him to say, it's been a rough moment, but we're trying to manage out of it. But anyway, all the same, his response to me, and I don't have a problem with him cursing. I know some people had a problem with that. He's responding in a vulgar manner when he's a head coach, and he shouldn't talk like that. I don't have a problem with that. I don't care. That doesn't affect me. I mean, other people can have their opinion on that. That doesn't bother me. It's not something I'm going to criticize him for. If that's how he feels it, then that's how he feels it. What I would say is, it just shows to me that he's also feeling it, like the pressure. He's also feeling the hurt and the criticism, because I mean, he's el cuestionado right now, right? He is the most criticized. You could talk about Chelo again, you could talk about Luis Suarez, but he is probably, Javier Mascherano is probably the most criticized member of Inter Miami right now in this present day. That's where I think the response comes from. That's where I think it's born out of. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's what I take.
Yeah, 100%. Because when Phil did it, I think Phil was a little bit more authentic with the reaction that he had in that moment. That Phil was actually mad because he was frustrated. With Mascherano, I read it, it's just like he got bothered by the question and responded in that manner, because the way that he's, like you say, he smirks, he laughs, he's just like when you say, like when your friend comes and asks you how you're doing, you say de puta madre, but sarcastically, right? Yeah, I think this says a lot about the team, about how he's feeling and how he's managing this, because listen, it all boils down to him, because we talked about last week, and I said it is Messi's responsibility because he brought him here, but he's not performing. So a big percentage is is on Messi, but another percentage is on him, because he should find a way, and he hasn't been able to do it, and he's not flexible enough to do it. And that's one big difference of why Tata Martino's team, and people remember Tata Martino's team last year when Messi wasn't there, that they were good, at least defensively, and they won the games by 1 goal or whatever, but they won. And so people remember that. And I think Mascherano feels that pressure and gets bothered when we ask him about it. But I think he expects softballs and
I mean, it was. Listen, I mean, that
and
wasn't my hardest
expects
question.
people just not to ask him stuff. But I'm like,
Sean Callahan here says you threw a softball and he cranked it for some reason. I
exactly.
mean,
So
it wasn't the hardest
it's not,
question.
it wasn't even that deep. Like
It
you
was not
weren't
a
asking
pointed
him.
question. It was
Yeah,
not a
exactly.
pointed question. It wasn't like Mascherano, you this, and this, and like it wasn't. As Pedri Potter here says in the comment section, says great response to negative puta madre media like General Franco. Listen, man, if the landscape and the outlook of the team is negative, I mean, there's not saying you can't ask a positive question. Like yesterday, I would have asked about Tadeo Allende at some point because he had a good game and he's one of the bright spots that we can talk about later on. But the overall outlook of Inter Miami is not a positive one. So, I mean, if you want to dub my question or just dub media as being negative because they're losing and that therefore the questions are more negative than positive, then I mean,
Listen, when you're in a team that is expected but not is a super team, a team that should be winning, and your response is like this, it tells you that things are bad. Things are bad because he has no like no idea. I don't know if idea is like the word, but he doesn't comprehend the limit of responsibility that he has. And he gets mad because he thinks that the media is just against him, or that we are Real Madrid, or that we are this and we are that. And those are just excuses to deflect, because when you do something like this, you have to come out and take all the questions in a good manner. Listen, as you guys know, we cover every team here.
That was a pro.
Exactly, we cover every team here, and I wanted to say no one has lost more than the Dolphins in my time covering sports here. I've covered Adam Gase, Brian Flores, and now McDaniel. And when they lost, they came out and talked to people, giving their faces in without insulting anyone. Then you got Pat Riley. He was grilled last week because Jimmy was in the playoffs. Jimmy was this. Why did you trade him? What did you do? He came out and answered every question that everyone threw on him without insulting anyone. So when you're in Miami and you have Messi and you are expected to be a super team, you cannot be coming here and saying like, oh, even if it's a joke, even if it's Argentinian, even if it's that, it's just unacceptable for me, because it wasn't even a bad question or a bad intention question. So he should have, I think it's just frustration boiling over. And
I want to add this, and then
with that.
I want to add this, and then we'll move on to, because we need to talk some actual football here. And again, I don't have a problem with the phrase. I don't have a problem with the term. I won't criticize him for that. Sean Callahan points out that Andrea doesn't watch the Marlins, because you said that.
I didn't even mention the Marlins, but yes, I've suffered the Marlins since I started working here, so don't worry about it.
Well, it's because you said that the Dolphins are the teams that have lost the most since you started. I mean, you have to. I mean, the Marlins are definitely have lost more.
I didn't even think about the Marlins. It's true, but the
Marlins don't even
enter.
The
Dolphins never.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
The Marlins went to the playoffs.
Yeah, the Dolphins have gone to the playoffs since I was. Anyway, I want to say this about Mascherano's comments. Like, I think they come from a place of him being very close still to having been a player. Like, he's not that far removed from being a player, right? Like, some of his players that he coaches are his peers. So he's still very much a player in a lot of senses, in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and look, and I'll say this, and we can talk about it as we get into the tactics. Mascherano's a young head coach, right? He coached on Argentina's under-20 national team. This is his first job coaching a professional side on the club level on the day-to-day. And just like Mascherano is a young coach, or just like a young player that you put on the field, you expect them to make mistakes. Mascherano's no different. He's a young head coach, and he's going to make mistakes, be it with his responses to the media, be it with his lineups, be it with his tactics, be it with his decision-making, be it with managing player egos, whatever the case is. he's going to make mistakes. That's natural. He's learning on the job. Now we can talk bigger picture. Why is someone who doesn't have the resume and the experience coaching a team like this that has such lofty expectations when, you know, the person that should be in charge ideally would be very seasoned, a seasoned, grizzled veteran like Tata Martino was, right? That knows how to handle different situations. Mascherano doesn't know how to handle these situations. He's learning.
Le falta señorío that Tata did have because of experience. That's just experience. I agree with you 100%.
So I don't have a problem with it. I think he's just going through some growing pains. And that extends to the field where Inter Miami, now we'll talk football, over the last 2 games in this road trip, ends up with 1 point, a 3-3 draw yesterday, a roller coaster 3-3 draw away to the San Jose Earthquakes. Previous to that, or prior to that, last Saturday, they suffer a goleada, a 4-1 loss to Minnesota United. So a lot of questions about the defense. You touched on the total goals that they've surrendered in the recent stretch. But when the attack plays well, the defense doesn't play well. When the defense needs the attack to play well, they don't play well. It's been very disjointed, very uneven. And part of that does fall on the shoulders of Mascherano. Not completely. There are players that shoulder their responsibility as well, or most of, not all the players shoulder the responsibility. But I said this when Phil Neville was head coach. I will reiterate it here. When so many players are playing below their level, it's normal for 1, 2, 3, maybe here and there in different moments to play underneath their level. But when you have so many of your starting lineup and even substitutes playing below their level, that is a clear indication to me of coaching, whether it's tactics, whether it's not getting the most out of the players, whatever the case is. I asked Mascherano about that after the Minnesota United loss this past weekend. This was Mascherano's response, where he took on full responsibility for el bajo rendimiento, the drop in performance levels. Tantos jugadores bajen de nivel.
No, a ver, si los jugadores bajan el rendimiento, claramente la responsabilidad es mía, toda mía. Eso está claro. Al final hay un entrenador y si el entrenador no llega a convencerlos o a transmitirle lo que uno pretende, es toda responsabilidad del entrenador.
I want to harp on that last part because he says, again, for you, those of you that don't speak English, he says the responsibility is his, all his. He says if the players drop in their performance levels, clearly that falls on the head coach. And he said a head coach's job is to relay and transmit his idea. And if that's not done, then that responsibility is all on the coach. That's the last part I want to touch on. When he says that, when he mentions that, do you take that as just coach talk, or do you take that as, because the face he makes as he's thinking about what to say, to me tells me that maybe some of these players aren't fully bought in. Maybe they're not. You know, maybe those Cuatro Fantásticos, the Fantastic Four, they fully buy in because they understand what Mascherano's about. But maybe some of the other guys aren't fully bought in, right? Because he touches on that. He mentions that. Well, why mention that if that's not an issue right now? To me, reading between the lines, I think that might be an issue here. I don't think that maybe everybody's bought in, and I could understand why a player might not be bought in when it's a head coach who, yes, as a player, tremenda trayectoria, hell of a resume, but as a coach, doesn't have the credentials.
No, not even that, because that, for me, yeah, I can see that being a factor, but also like the bonding for or of the team, of the players, because you got a lot of new players that are young, that don't know the league, and you don't have leaders. Like I know Messi's the captain of this team, but he's not a leader in the sense of that he'll be asking, for example, Maximiliano Falcon, oh, do you like your house? How are your dogs? How is your child? Do you like the school? He'll not do that. So Inter Miami is lacking in those types of players. And Inter Miami is also lacking in the sense that they have cut it a lot of players, like they did Robert Taylor and Julian Gressel, who were not part of this coaching staff's likeness, but were part of that bond in the locker room. So then you get players getting benched like Drake Calendar for Ustari. Um, I'm not gonna start on that right now because I
Oh,
want
here
to
we
say a
go.
lot of stuffs, but
Here we go.
I don't want to start on that. So it's difficult because you get not only a locker room that don't trust fully the coach, as you're saying, but you have a locker room that is not bonded, that is not willing to go and fight for each other fully, and that bottles down because not everyone has to be friends, but that bottles down on the coach on trying to make an ambience and a locker room that is strong enough that even though they are not friends and maybe hate each other, they go on the field and practice the idea that he's bringing here and get the results. So I think what's happening, it's a lot of that, and that's just because Mascherano is inexperienced. It's not the same directing or being the coach of a national team, because a national team is different. Everyone wants to play for the national team. In a team, you have to create that, and in the national team, it's already there. So it's just a whole different animal when you're doing it for a team, when you're doing it day by day, and not just for la concentraciones. And I think it's not working in Inter Miami. I think it's not just what you said, but a lot of factors like the ones I have said.
Kada says, Franco, you said it best. The late Grant Wall's book, The Beckham Experiment. Inter Miami did not prepare the squad the right way. Beckham should know better. We'll harp on that here in a second. I want to touch on what you said about team chemistry, because there's examples of plenty of teams at different levels, higher levels, that they weren't the best of friends in the locker room. They weren't best buds. As a matter of fact,
Exactly.
they wanted to go at each other's throats.
hated
They
each other.
disliked each other. They hated each
Mhm.
other. But the football still, on the field, they understood each other. On the field, they could create magic. On the field, they would win games. So that overshadowed the lack of team chemistry. Well, when things aren't going well and you don't have that team chemistry, then that lack of team chemistry starts to show a little bit. And I want to listen to a soundbite from Yannick Bright from last Friday's practice session, where again he talks about how he pushes back on Javier Mascherano's notion that he's not able to play 90. He says he can play 90, although right now he's working on being able to do so, but he does feel he can do it, which is what you want to hear from a player, of course. But later on in the interview, I asked him, what are the challenges? Because he talked about playing games every 3 days, which has been a big part of Inter Miami's schedule to this point in the season, right? They've had a lot of games. They play midweek because they've been playing in other competitions. And there's a small little thing. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me reading into it too much. Maybe not. Maybe not. So let's listen to Yannick Bright, and then we'll build on this thought.
Touched on your fitness levels. When you rotate in as a game as a starter one game and substitute in the next game, what are the challenges that you face in terms of your fitness levels? Is it just a matter of not getting those 90 minutes consistently? Is it more work you could be doing in practice? I mean, what are the challenges when you're not getting those 90 minutes like you were last year?
Yeah, so obviously playing every three days doesn't make us train, the way we want. But they're used to it, so I guess they can do it. The thing for me is going in, starting a game, and then obviously the day before the game you don't really train as hard. The day after the game you don't train as hard. So for me, it's one training day, count two, in between two games that I start, and that doesn't really help me build fitness, does it? So, but those are all technicalities that I talked about with the fitness coach, and we're working on it. But
How are you guys working?
So he says, the part that I want to harp on is this, I put the whole question so it's clear for everybody that I just asked about his challenges, but he responds at one point by saying they're used to it. Who is they that he's referring to?
The Cuatro Fantásticos, of
The
course.
four, exactly. That's how I read it, right? That's what he's talking about. Like the big guys, the Fantastic Four, they're used to being able to play games every 3 days without much practice. And to me, that shows a clear line between which what we've talked about it over the course of the last 2 years. There's the Fantastic Four, and then there's the rest of the group. And I think that's clear. There's a clear divide between the elite players and the not elite players. And I think that is definitely something not going in Inter Miami's favor right now. If they were playing well and they were winning, this wouldn't be as big of a talking point.
Yeah,
but
but
they're
this is a
not.
problem that I mentioned you last podcast, and Yannick Bright just confirmed it. While we were there, I was just thinking he just confirmed what I said. That this team caters to the needs of Messi and Busquets and Jordi Alba and Luis Suarez, and young players don't get the training that they need, and especially young players right now with Mascherano are not getting any better. Because as I said last week, with Tata, we saw Diego Gomez get a lot better and become a good player. Obviously, also his national team coach and his performances there helped him. But we saw him keep that up with Inter Miami. We have not seen many young players perform with Mascherano to that level. We were talking about Redondo. We were talking about Tomás Avilés last week. I will give you that example. Yannick Bright also not being able to finish games because the training is done based on the 4 stars. And I get that, but those are not the only 4 players that the team have. So for me, as I said last week, the team trains a little, too little, too muy poco tiempo, and the young players don't get in the training that they should be doing. That maybe they get other plays or get a specific training just with them, and maybe they don't get enough time with Lionel Messi, with Sergio Busquets and the other guys to learn, because they don't train that much. And I understand that they play a lot of games, but that's also a responsibility that the coach has. And for me, this all bottles down on that. You can see the cracks getting in from everywhere, because we've discussed this angle from what we began talking about Messi frustrated about what Mascherano said, now what Yannick Bright said. It all boils down that Mascherano is an inexperienced coach. And unfortunately for Inter Miami, they chose this guy. They gave him a contract for 3 years, a long contract. And now the team is in this state with even players admitting that they need more training, that they need something else. And that is the case, not just only for Bright, but you can see it for Redondo. Redondo is abysmal. Tomás Avilés, abysmal. Every young player has, in my opinion, regressed in Inter Miami.
Pedri Potter says, "Are you supposed to cater to Drake, Gramaski, Frey, and Bright?" ? Laughing my ass off. LMAO. Javier.
Well, if they're young players, you need to cater to them.
I don't think cater is the right word. I think what you need to do when you have a football team, right? You're going to cater to your stars. You're going to cater to your stars. Sure. That's reality. But you also need to have a decent balance with the rest of the group, because the rest of the group also makes up the team that's competing.
This is not Messi in Barcelona. This is Messi in MLS at 38 years old. It is a fact of life. He is old now. It's not going to be the same.
Javier01, I think this is the first time Javier01 comments here, says, "I prefer the team of last year compared with this one." Yeah, I mean, last year's team set the points record in Major League Soccer. This team is irregular. It is inconsistent. The game against Minnesota, Andrea, let's dive into the X's and O's a little bit. Inter Miami comes out very aggressively, right? They pushed their field players into the attacking third, almost all of them. Like Noah Allen was at the front of the attacking third, right? And that just showed how Inter Miami's position was. But that's in part because Minnesota United welcomes that pressure, right? They sit back. They don't look to play. They don't look to have the ball. They don't look to have possession. And they know that Inter Miami was going to give up spaces in behind when they play such a high line, which Inter Miami did, and they expose them on the counter. Now, there's also some defensive mistakes, some defensive blunders. There's, Chelo Weigand, and I know you're probably going to chuckle here because I know you're not the biggest Chelo Weigand advocate, especially after taking a ball to the neck or the chin, but all the same, he scores a horrendous own goal in the game against Minnesota United that essentially kills off Inter Miami, because Inter Miami, thanks to a goal from Lionel Messi off an assist from Jordi Alba, gets Inter Miami back into that one. They were down 2-0. Messi's goal makes it 2-1, but then Chelo Weigand's blunder, his lapse in concentration, his brain fart to head the ball to Oscar Ustari from super close, ends up into the back of the net. It was a terrible own goal.
And that's just because they like to play like that. They like to give passes back to the goalkeeper.
So that's one mistake. The other mistake was the second goal.
I know everyone is saying, likes to say Ancello, but you need to analyze it a little bit more. That he looked to do that because that is the instruction he receives.
So in a second goal, Inter Miami completely gets beat in the battles, individual battles. It's a throw-in right before halftime. A throw-in from Inter Miami's right, and it's a header at the near post, pretty much uncontested, and then at the back post, a headed finish. Jordi Alba with some poor marking there. The old saying in Spanish is, dos cabezazos en la área es un gol. Two headers in the penalty area. Any two headers results in a goal. And that was the case on two occasions in this game. If I'm not mistaken, Chelo Weigand's header comes off of a header from a Minnesota United attacker. But all the same, Inter Miami gets exposed on the counter yet again. Once again, the question of Inter Miami's physical attributes, the athleticism, the ability to have range and to have legs comes into question, because Julian Gressel apparently told Michael Boxall, the Minnesota United, the New Zealand center back, that Inter Miami was going to be good for the first 30 minutes. And then after that, essentially the level would dip, the level would drop, and that Minnesota would get an opportunity. Well, they scored in the 32nd minute. So as Michael Boxall pointed out in his post-game interview, looks like Julian Gressel was right. Now, Javier Mascherano didn't want to talk about that when I asked him. He was like, he doesn't view it as serious to talk about what someone said after the fact. And he also pointed to the fact that Inter Miami had possession for 70% of the time, which clearly shows that they have the physical tools to be able to play. But I don't necessarily view it that way because, again, Minnesota United didn't look to fight for the ball. They didn't want possession. They let Inter Miami have it. They stayed organized. They made spaces tight.
Yeah, but that possession with how many? Inter Mascherano likes to say we dominated, we had possession, but possession with what? How many corners? How many shots on goal? Nothing.
Correct.
Nothing.
Correct.
So possession. If you're gonna have possession, I expect you to be Guardiola's Barcelona, right? With Messi, you have Messi, right? You have Busquets, you have Jordi Alba, you have Luis Suarez. So you're expected to, if you're gonna have possession, you're expected to do something with that possession. The problem is that Mascherano shields that and says, "Oh, possession," but you don't get any corners. You don't get
Right.
if you have 70% of possession, 80%, you should be getting at least 10, 15 corners. But no, the team is not getting that. He's not getting not even 10 shots on goal. So for me, that's just nonsense. Nonsense.
It's possession without production, right? Possession without production. You can have the ball all you want, but if you're just knocking it around side to side and you're not doing anything with it, then look, I'm a big, in terms of how I view the game, right? Like my personal preference. If I was a coach, I would want a team that likes to have the ball. I think having the ball, you can dictate the tempo more than if you don't have the ball, right? Because there's only one ball. So if you have it, you can dictate. If you're good enough with it, you can dictate the tempo. That's how I view it. But that doesn't mean that just having possession equals that you're going to win. You have to do something with that possession. You have to be able to penetrate that final third. Inter Miami could not penetrate the final third. And Mascherano talked about, oh, well, Minnesota United was organized and there wasn't a lot of space and this and that. Okay, well, that's why you have the players you have that are supposed to find those spaces, that are supposed to create those spaces, whether it's combinations, whether it's crosses, whether it's through balls, whether it's movements, immaculate runs off the ball. I mean, we saw an element Inter Miami has lost was Diego Gomez's runs off the ball. Last year, Diego Gomez would make some killer runs off the ball that would lead to either opportunities or shots for himself or for others. Inter Miami doesn't really have that anymore. They can't really stretch a defense. They've talked about, Tadeo Allende being able to do that, Fafa Pico, which, by the way, Fafa Pico missed both of these games with a case of migraines, a very serious case of migraines. I mean, I don't want to make light of it because, and I mean, no pun intended, make light. I'm talking about migraines, but because if he is going through that, then obviously that's not a great thing. But it's hard to believe when Inter Miami talks about these things because they're so mysterious, and they have been for so long about injuries. Just right last week, Andrea, right? We get an update on Drake calendar, right? And we hear from Mascherano on Friday that Inter Miami will have an update on Drake calendar. Well, we went to breakfast. You, Jose, our colleague Fernando Petrocelli, and myself, we had a Honduran breakfast after that practice. And I told you guys, I was like, and this was not inside information, but I was like, I imagine he's going to have surgery, right? If they have an update and he's already been out, then it's going to be surgery. When we spoke to the Inter Miami team, communications team, I asked to confirm and clarify, hey, what was the injury that Drake Calendar had? Hernia, right? Because I had heard that was information. I had heard he had a hernia issue. And the response I got was, no, it's an adductor injury. It's an adductor. And that's what they had been labeling at. Well, when the press release comes out stating that Drake Calendar has had successful surgery on Friday morning, it's labeled as a hernia. So that's why it's tough to believe that Fafa Pico just missed these 2 games because of migraines. It's hard to believe. Maybe he did. And again, if he did, speedy recovery. Must have been a very severe case of migraines to miss 2 matches, not even dress. But it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. So speaking of players who missed these games, and I know this one you're going to have fun with, Luis Suarez missed both of these matches for Inter Miami. We'll get back to the tactics when we talk about the San Jose Earthquakes game. But Luis Suarez misses both of these games, leaving Inter Miami without their first choice number 9, which for a lot of people is something they've been wanting to see, right? A lot of people wanted Suarez out of the lineup because he's not been producing enough. He looks a couple steps slower than he did last year. But Suarez was unavailable, we were told last Friday, for the Minnesota game due to personal reasons. Well, Andrea, those personal reasons turned out, as I reported on Monday, to be a wedding for his brother-in-law in Valencia, Spain. Now, I will say this to give a fully well-rounded picture. From what I heard from sources, the pact was agreed to long before. Like he was given permission to miss these games well in advance. It was already agreed to. However, that Suarez misses 2 games raises questions about, again, Los Cuatro Fantásticos and how the team gives them, of course, different privileges that they wouldn't give other players, right? Like if Benjamin Kremaski came tomorrow and said, hey, you know what, my neighbor's best friend is getting married. I want to go in a couple months. Can I go? I mean, is Inter Miami going to say yes? All the same, look, I don't think you can question. I don't think you can question
culture that everyone is the same. And
hold on, Andrea. Hold on.
That is a problem for this team.
Hold on. I don't think we can question Suarez's commitment because I think you can see that he's playing through a lot of discomfort and pain. Like clearly he can't run like he used to. So I don't think it's the questioning of the commitment, but I think it's just not a good look. it's just not a good look that he's gone, right, during a road trip for 2 games, not even just 1 game,
It's
2 games
unacceptable.
to
It's
be
just
for
unacceptable. Even if they agreed to this before, then they should have said other stuff than personal reasons, because when someone says personal reasons, you expect someone has died, someone is sick, they're having a baby. You expect something like that, right? But then to see pictures of the wedding, his whole family there while the team has 2 matches, for me, it's just a bad look completely. Imagine, eh, he wouldn't do this even if he signed a contract. He wouldn't do this in Barcelona, in Liverpool, in Atletico de Madrid, in PSV. He wouldn't have done this because he would have gotten fired. In Europe, he wouldn't have played ever again. Even if he asked even asking for permission, because you don't do that in a professional team. That's not acceptable.
Sean
That's not
Callahan.
acceptable. And for them, it's just accept. For them, it's acceptable because it's them. It's another standard, and that's also what I was saying. This team has problems more than just football. They have problems in chemistry, and because any players watching this, and then you watch Robert Taylor and you Julian Gressel being cut the way that they were cut, and you say, oh, these guys get this privilege, and I'm just in alas de cucaracha, as we say in Spanish. I don't know if I'm safe or whatever. I can be traded or be cut or whatever in any moment, and this guy gets permissions to go to his it's not even his sister or his family. I would have understand if it was his family.
It is his family, right? In the general sense, but like Sean
Not
Callahan,
even blood. Imagine Sean Callahan. It's not even blood. It is an in-law getting married. Exactly, man. Like,
and
you
Sean
miss
Callahan
2
adds,
games.
that's whack. That's
It
whack. He
is.
adds that.
It's professional sport. You're getting paid millions of dollars.
I don't know.
Millions of
Is he getting
dollars.
paid millions? I don't know if he's getting paid millions. He's taking a pay cut, but all the same, he is a professional player, and with being a professional player comes certain obligations.
And now you want players that can go to their national team to miss a competition, an official competition, like it's the Gold Cup, to miss that with their national teams, to stay with Inter Miami. You want them to do that, but you are giving permission to other players to go to a wedding when you have 2 important matches. That is just unacceptable. Unacceptable in every way.
So I want to make sure I round out this idea as clearly as possible. I'm not going to question his commitment. I just think it's a bad look, and I think it helps, or it doesn't help, change the idea that Los Cuatro Fantásticos are catered to, while the rest of the team is kind of, I don't want to say forgotten about, but kind of treated a lot different. And look, they're the 4 players with European pedigree, right? They've played at the highest levels. They've played in World Cups. Some of them have won World Cups. So I get that you manage them differently. I understand team dynamics. I understand that not everybody's the same. I get that. But you have to try to make it as to a point where everyone feels as close as possible to being the same. It's a hard task to do, especially in MLS, where some of these players are young kids from the academy that have grown up here locally. You have other players coming from different places. I get that it's a difficult thing to do, but you have to try to close the gap in between your top players and your rest of your players. If the divide is very big, that's going to lead to issues. We've seen it. We've read about it. There's a huge sample size in David Beckham's time with the LA Galaxy when he first got there, and just how divided things were. You had guys making $50,000-$60,000 a year at that point, going to huge gala events, huge things that David Beckham was invited to, a player of his profile, and his star and his celebrity. You have to try to close that, not try to expand that, especially when you're in this poor run of form. Look, again, most people were asking for Suarez to come out of the lineup. Most people were asking for that to happen. So it happens, right? It happens. A lot of people got what they wanted. But the way it happens is not because it's a technical decision. It's because it was agreed to from beforehand.
He's gonna come back and he's gonna start, and that is even more unacceptable.
And that's where team. That's what impacts team dynamics.
If I were a coach and a player agreed that with management, I would say, mijito, ganate el puesto de vuelta. And we've seen that, especially with Latin players, when they come and they go to their national teams and they go before and they play, they miss a day. What do they do in Europe? They sit you the whole season. Or until they need you or something like that. But Luis Suarez is gonna come here and start. And for me, that's just unacceptable. Unacceptable. That's another thing that you add to this Inter Miami and to this season that it's just unacceptable for me, and it's something that a winning team does not do. That is the problem, because all of this stuff that we have talked about the problem with Mascherano and his coaching, his tactics, but this other stuff that happens, just it doesn't make a winning team. So that just tells me that Inter Miami are going in the wrong direction, and it could be even worse than what it is now, because right now they are still in a playoffs position in MLS, because MLS is very forgiving. But looking forward to the Club World Cup, you see all of this. You're not gonna see Real Madrid give Jude Bellingham permission to go and his friend, the friend of his friend that he met on Facebook, get married. Because and he's gonna miss the Club World Cup. You're not gonna see that. So that bodes bad for this team.
Francisco Garcia says, to be fair with Suarez, almost everyone wanted Suarez to sit out for a few games. Yes, that is true. That is correct. But not because he left to go be,
and he's
excuse me,
come
at
back
a distant, at a more distant family member's wedding. It wasn't like his sister was getting married. It was his
let me tell you, let me ask you, do you think he's gonna play against Orlando?
Yes. Does he start?
Exactly.
Yes.
Then that is what makes this more unacceptable than what we're talking about, because he already missed the games, and that the problem is that he's gonna come back and he's gonna start with Orlando, or he's gonna play with Orlando.
Luis Lopez says the entire framework and culture of the club needs to be redone. It's not fun watching Inter Miami. I'll correct that. I think it's not fun watching this Inter Miami.
I know the thing is that this Inter Miami became messy. And I told you since the beginning, and we were always fighting in this podcast since he got here, that I told you this is a mistake, because you're doing just catering to Messi, and the club is not that old, doesn't have a solid fan base that's gonna travel through the years, through ups and downs with this team. So that is a problem that they're gonna have to fix, and it's really concerning. And we were talking about this, and also Simon, when he was in the podcast, saying that Jorge Mas needs to take control of his team. I completely agree, because next year you gotta go to a new stadium. Many people that are from West Palm Beach and from Broward are not gonna come to a stadium in Miami, and you're gonna lose that. And it's not enough with Messi fans, because you just see the tickets for the Club World Cup. No one is buying tickets to see Inter Miami.
They're ridiculously expensive. But Andrea, with the nugget that she tuned into the episode with Simon Evans on it, that's compromiso. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking. That's the commitment we like to see around here.
So that is a problem, and I agree with that comment. I don't remember the name. I didn't read it. I didn't read what was his name. But I agree wholeheartedly with the comment. Inter Miami has created no culture for Inter Miami. There is a culture created for Messi, and Messi playing in Inter Miami, and the shirts that look like Argentina shirts and all of that. That is amazing. But once Messi leaves and retires in 1 year, in 2 years, what is going to happen to Inter Miami? So the team should be building that right now, and unfortunately it isn't. And with these decisions, even players don't want to be here, because you're a player that maybe misses the birth of your son because you go to play, or you're a player that misses your baptism or whatever, and you go, but you see then you're on the bench, and then you see Luis Suarez going to a party, missing two. Not only I think I would have been
maybe
more open
game.
if he missed one game and he was here. He traveled from Valencia to San Jose, California, and he played, or he was available in the game with San Jose yesterday, Wednesday night. So I would accepted that a little bit more. It would have been bad, but missing 2 games for a wedding, nah, man, that's just unacceptable. Like,
Nader here says they should change Inter Miami's name to Friends FC. Luis Lopez adds the entire framework and culture of the club needs to be redone. Oh, I already read this comment, I think. Moonman says it's the GOAT's fault. He asked for Suarez and Mascherano and also asked for more Argentine players. Plus, he must stop yelling at young players. They do nothing wrong like the one I mentioned. I'll say this to round out this idea about Suarez. Paolo Guerrero, the Peruvian striker, who's I think he's 41 now, 42. He's playing for Alianza Lima, his hometown childhood club, the club he grew up, in love with. And he recently did an interview, and I saw it on my Instagram just by pure coincidence, pura casualidad, where they ask him about playing soccer at this age, playing football at this age, and he says, "Football's my life. Football is what I was made for. I couldn't see myself doing anything else." And then he starts going into how, as a professional soccer player, uno se deprive de muchas cosas. Professional players deprive themselves of a lot of things. The ability to attend parties, the ability to be there for big moments because they have a game on the weekend. And he talks about that. And I thought it resonated with me when this whole Luis Suarez thing happened. And again, I'm not questioning Luis Suarez's commitment because I think, just to even be able to play requires a lot. But I think it's just another bad look. I think it's just a bad look.
With his teammates.
That's where I think it's a bad look. That's where I think it's not only for the outside and us media members and pundits, right? For his teammates, like they're out there struggling, losing 4-1, busting their tail, scoring own goals, and you're over there
partying,
having a good time, Not even for like an immediate relative. It's for like a distant relative.
No, for the team. Yeah, when I talk about that, I mean that side, especially because our opinion doesn't matter for the players, but the players must be. That's why I told you the players must. I told you they sat Drake Callender, they cut Julian Ressel, they cut Robert Taylor, they treated them very badly, and now they give permission to Luis Suarez to go to a party while you have to go and lose 4-1 and then struggle against San Jose Earthquakes. Is just I will be mad if I was a player in the locker room.
There was one positive, I think, that came from Suarez not being available for these two games. And maybe also a direct result of Fafa Pico not being available for these two games. And that was Tadeo Allende. He did not start against Minnesota United. He does start against the San Jose Earthquakes. And he scores 2 goals. And we saw glimpses of the Tadeo Allende that we saw at the start of the season that was putting the ball in the back of the net, that was being a goal threat. Both of his finishes are pretty clinical. They're not like golazos from his aspect, but it's like, making the run, finding the right spot to be in. And we saw some of that from him again yesterday. He doesn't
get that chance when Suarez plays.
That's where I'm going with this, because it was if we're talking, it took us an hour to get to maybe a positive here for Inter Miami, but it was a positive. Tadeo in this performance was a positive because he gives them a different element up top. And he gives them something that maybe Luis Suarez hasn't been giving them. Although you could say Suarez doesn't get those opportunities very often when he's been playing. But that might be because of his physical limitations, because he can't make the runs. He can't make them in time. He can't, get the timing right. Things like that. Tadeo Allende scores 2 goals. It helps make a case for him to be a real option up top. Because it's clear that Allen Obando is not rated very highly by Javier Mascherano and his technical staff, right? He didn't start in either one of these games, came off the bench against the Earthquakes, but it's clear that they're not high on him right now, that they think that he's got a lot of work to do. But let's listen to Tadeo Allende talk about his goals, because that's going to lead to the conversation for this weekend.
¿Qué tal? Buenas noches. Personalmente fue un partido muy regular. Estoy contento por eso, porque no me venía sintiendo muy bien. Esto me sirve para mi confianza y para mi desempeño. Pero bueno, en lo colectivo sufrimos un poco, lo pudimos empatar. Si bien nos convirtieron ahí en las que tuvieron ellos, que fueron pocas, y bueno, pero nosotros también tuvimos finos y pudimos convertir en las ocasiones que tuvimos.
Andrea, a lot of people will want anybody but Suarez to start this weekend in the Sunshine Clásico, el Clásico del Sol against rivals Orlando City. I don't think you or I think that Suarez will be on the bench. We both think he starts. But
Yeah, I think
should
if we see him there
Tadeo
tomorrow
Allende start?
training, he's going to start.
But should Tadeo Allende start? Should Tadeo, after the performance on Wednesday, should Tadeo Allende be the starter going into this weekend's match?
Yeah, I think that based on performances, I think that Allende should be considered as a number 9, and maybe getting other play, maybe getting, if Fafa is able to do it, if he's better, put him instead, and put Velasco Segovia there, and Messi and Tadeo Allende in the attack. And I don't think we're gonna see Mascherano do that, because I think if Suarez is available, and maybe he came back here and he was training all these days, we don't know. We're gonna find out tomorrow if he's back, or is he going to train tomorrow? We're gonna find out. But I would keep Tadeo Allende there as a 9, and bring in Fafa in to take his place, or to play against Orlando, because you need quick players that can damage Orlando, who is a solid team. We know they are always difficult for Inter Miami. Not last year, right? Not last year in one game, but the other game was hard. But I think they're going to be difficult for Inter Miami, and you should take advantage of players like Tadeo Allende and Fafa Picot when you have them. But
So Francisco Garcia says Suarez will start. Allende is not a striker. He can play as a striker, pero no lo es.
When
He's not that.
Francisco, I want to
I
tell
agree
you,
with
when I
that.
interviewed Tadeo Allende, when he got here, he said he likes to play as a striker better than in the wings. So he's playing in the wings here in Inter Miami because the Suarez is there.
So I will agree with the overall sentiment that I think Suarez starts. I just don't see Mascherano benching Suarez, despite Tadeo Allende's performance. I do think that the conversation should be had. It should be a question that gets asked. Should we give Tadeo Allende another look there and see how he does again? Because clearly with Suarez, it hasn't been great as of late. I think that conversation should be had. Is it being had? Maybe for a couple seconds, but I think clear-cut Suarez starts this weekend in a very important matchup for Inter Miami. Not only because it's the rivalry, not only because it's a home game, but just because of the bad run they're in. They need to get a jolt of positivity back in the team, right? They need the questions to be more positive. They need the performances to be more positive. They need just the overall environment, the atmosphere, the climate to be a little bit happier, a little bit lighter, because right now it's clearly not. Andrea, to start rounding out some ideas here, who should start for Inter Miami? Not who should, who will start, in your opinion, for Inter Miami on Sunday night's Sunshine Clásico, El Clásico del Sol, here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at Chase Stadium? Inter Miami versus rivals Orlando City. Who will start?
The same lineup.
Who? Give me who? After all these defensive mistakes, who?
Yeah, we're gonna see the same lineup. We're
Ustari?
gonna see Ustari. We're gonna see Marcelo Weigand. We're gonna see what is his name?
Are we gonna see Peluca Falcón again?
Uruguay, Falcón, Noah Allen, Jordi Alba. Then we're gonna get Busquets. The question would be if you get Yannick Bright or Redondo, since Yannick played during the week. I'm guessing Redondo came in the second half because Yannick couldn't finish. So I'm guessing that's a toss-up between either one. You're going to get Luis Suarez and Messi, and then Velasco Segovia and Tadeo Allende. And I guess we are gonna see Kremaski also.
No, you already gave me 11. Now you can't fit Kremaski in. You just gave me 11.
No, I'm talking about either Bright or if it's Bright Redondo, I could see Kremaski being in the mix also. But I think you'll see the same. I don't think Mascherano will change. I don't think he will bench Marcelo Weigand because for him he is the best option he has.
I think we could see some tweaks. Maybe I'm being optimistic because Mascherano hasn't really changed much in the games that I thought he's going to change stuff. But let's listen to Mascherano yesterday. This is a long sound bite, but it'll help us to start to round out because the only other thing we have to talk about is Jordi Alba renewing and what that means for the future. But let's listen to this from Mascherano because he talks about the defensive mistakes they're making. I think this is where we could see some changes on the back line.
Claramente, a ver, en el sentido de cometer los mismos errores, el otro día en Minnesota, estando 1-0 por debajo, nos hacen el segundo gol terminando la primera parte. Hoy nos pasa lo mismo, conseguimos ponernos 2-2 después de ir ganando el partido y de que nos lo den vuelta. A lo que quiero decir es que tenemos que ser más inteligentes, claramente. Hay momentos donde tenés que saber sufrir, tenés que saber vivir el momento y si el partido está complicado hay que convivir con ese momento. Es parte de un equipo que quiere pelear por cosas importantes y la verdad que nos ha pasado con Dallas, que estando 3-1 nos dan vuelta en jugadas muy puntuales el resultado teniendo el control del partido. Hoy cuando hacemos ni hablar cuando íbamos ganando 1-0 con un gol tan temprano, son cosas que no nos podemos permitir. Y saber que muchas veces los riesgos en algún momento que estamos asumiendo, tener la sabiduría para no correrlos demasiado, es decir, porque la realidad es que es una lástima que hoy con el partido 1-0 como nosotros mismos nos complicamos el partido. Al final nosotros terminamos poniendo a San José dentro del partido una y otra vez, y es algo que no lo podemos permitir. Claramente tenemos mucho para trabajar, pero bueno, también me quedo con el aspecto positivo de haber luchado, de haberlo empatado y de haberlo querido ganar hasta el último minuto.
So Mascherano is a very long soundbite. Mascherano, just to sum up, says he's, it's the same mistakes. They have to keep working. They also have to be smarter, have more sabiduría, which would be wisdom, in terms of the mistakes that they're making. So he continues to acknowledge that they're making the same mistakes, not really offering a whole lot of solutions. And we're seeing the same things over and over and over again. That's why I think at this point, you've got to look at some personnel adjustments. I think, I don't think Ian Frey's going to start. I don't think that's possible based on what we saw on Wednesday. Lujan came in for Chilwell Gant. Was not Ian Frey.
But that's the problem with Mascherano. But Lujan came in, but not just Mascherano brought all defenders because he also brought David Martinez. He likes to do that. He do that every game. If you're a coach in MLS, you know that is. He wanted the tie. And let's break it. I don't agree with what he say. Oh, we control the game and they got in because of mistakes. Yes, Ustari has responsibility in the 2 goals.
Ustari had a very bad game.
What helped Inter Miami was that Chicho Arango got injured in the 30th minute and he left the field because Inter Miami were getting destroyed and they couldn't control Arango. And even though Arango is not a quick striker, but he is good with his feet, even though he's not quick, and that's why he's the top goal scorer in the league, right? But I don't agree with him that they control the match. They were lucky that Cristian Arango got injured, and also that they could the 3 goals of Inter Miami were a place that you could see starting, but they were not like team plays that you build up or your possession brought these 3 goals, right? Because they were very pointed plays. So and the problem with Mascherano is that in every game he makes the same substitutions. He brings 5 central defenders. He brings 5 defenders to close out games, and that's why he lost against Dallas, and thankfully here he didn't lose, right? Because he made the same changes. He brought in Lujan, he brought in David Martinez. More than saying that we keep making the same mistakes, he keeps making the same mistakes because he at the 70th minute, you already know Lujan or David Martinez or both are coming in. or
So
Yannick Wright or Federico Redondo. You don't see much from this anything else from this team.
So I think we could see Lujan Forcello on Sunday. I do think that's a possibility. The rest of the team, maybe you see Fafa start if he's healthy enough. Maybe you see him play out on the wing. Maybe in favor of Velasco Segovia. Maybe. Maybe even for Tadeo Allende. But I think other than that, I think, maybe you could see a different change at center back, but I think those are the two tweaks we might see. Those are the two tweaks. Clearly, they have to do something. They can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? Because it's clear. Andrea, does Inter Miami win, lose, or draw on Sunday?
I think they draw.
It's tough, man. It's tough. But you know what? I think they win. I think they'll find a way to get some positive momentum going. And they need it, man. They need it. Like, things aren't going their way. There were some unlucky moments for them against San Jose. And I think they do also need a bit of good fortune. I mean, they clearly need better performances. They need better tactics. They need a lot of different things, but they also need a little bit of luck. They haven't had much luck lately. Like the goal that I think Ian Harkes scores, like the ball ricochets off of Sergio Busquets and falls right into his path. Now, should the defense have been marking him better? Sure. But then he takes a shot from distance. It's a savable shot. Oscar Ustari se la come. It doesn't make the save. So a little bit of bad luck with, yes, bad performances, but maybe they just get that one little bit of luck to get a positive result, a winning
Orlando
result.
won 3-1 yesterday, right?
Yes.
3-1.
Yes. I will say this because I had a conversation with a colleague who's not covered Inter Miami specifically, but I'll say this, and it's something I think that needs to be thought about. When Inter Miami was at its best with Javier Mascherano, it was when they were very pragmatic. When they were defensive-minded, they weren't attractive. Like, it wasn't a pretty style of play, but they were more direct. And that allowed the defense to be sólidos, compact, right? Now when they've tried to become more attack-minded, which doesn't seem to be what he really feels or how he sees the game, now they're kind of all over the place. The defense is bad. The attack is hit or miss. I
don't see it that way because I think that when the season started, they didn't have many games with good rivals. And now when they got real rivals, good teams to play, that good teams that can play, that can fight, and coaches that have different ideas, you are seeing the reality. And the problem is that now you're seeing the reality. You lost the most important game against Vancouver, and now you get all these games with difficult opponents in MLS, and they need a result. They need at least a draw on Sunday because the games that are left are complicated games against complicated opponents, and can take the team in a very bad direction. And I agree with what you're saying, but people, and I always told you this in the podcast, and I got red carded. I want to bring that up because I got red carded. That I told you this is preseason. They didn't play good opponents. And the first games, I think the only game that they played and they won because they defended well was that Charlotte game. They won 1-0, but Mascherano threw every defender in the field, and estaban los 11 colgados del palo de Ustari against Charlotte because I think I remember Charlotte having like 18 shots on goal.
But I think, Andrea,
that was the only difficult rival until that point, because in Conca Champions, they didn't get anything.
But I think that is the formula to be a little bit more successful with this team, with Mascherano as head coach. Because again, when they were this compact, organized team that played more direct, that wasn't all about possession at the start of the year, and despite the opponents, right? Inter Miami found ways to get results, right? The season opener, they go down a man in the first half, and they still managed to find a draw. Against Columbus, they don't play that well, but they do enough defensively. Right, but they do enough defensively to give them an opportunity to win, or at least get a result. Now, they also got some good luck there with some bad finishing from Columbus, but that is I mean, that's how Mascherano views the game, Andrea. Like whenever we talk about players and we ask him about different things, he always kind of resorts back to the defensive aspect. I asked him last Friday about, what he likes about Suarez, in this recent run, despite not scoring a whole lot. And I even try to give him an assist by talking about the assist that Suarez has to try to make it easy for him to respond to. He talked about the defensive side and how he presses and how he organizes the team and the front line on the defensive posture. So Mascherano just views the game defensively. I think what's happening is he's trying to. Just knocked over my microphone. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to play or adopt a style that fits in line with what Jorge Mas wants, right? Jorge Mas and Jose talks about this often. Jorge Mas has talked about wanting to be attack-minded, the protagonist, the ones that control the tempo. I think in trying to do that, he's getting away from how he, as a coach, views the game. And I think that's why you're getting this very mixed performances, very uneven, where one game it's the attack that's struggling, the next it's the defense. Player performance levels are all over. I think that's a big part of also what's happening here. Speaking of bad luck, Baltasar Rodriguez makes his debut for Inter Miami, plays and it gets an assist in his time on the field. So he plays an important or makes an impact in his spell there, but his spell is cut short because he apparently suffered another injury, which have forced him to be subbed out. So even more bad luck for Inter Miami, either bad luck or mal manejo, one of the two. But not good for Inter Miami. We'll see what the update is on Baltasar Rodriguez. And last question for you, Andrea, and we'll wrap up because we're hitting our mark here and it's late because we started late. Jordi Alba was announced as resigning through 2027 earlier today. A lot of people are taking that as a sign that Lionel Messi will also be resigning soon. I've said this from the beginning. From what I hear, Messi's not going anywhere. Doesn't even matter with the results. He's happy off the field. His family's settled. He's making a killing in terms of marketing. The project is completely about him. So he's not going anywhere. The announcement it's just a foregone conclusion from what I've heard. So Andrea, is that what you're reading into it as well? This is going to be the Messi project will extend for at least 2 more seasons, or does it just go through 2026? If Jordi Alba's sticking around through 2027, I mean, I don't see Alba without Messi.
I don't see Messi going that. I think Jordi Alba is younger than Messi, if I'm not mistaken. And I think this is. I don't think Jordi Alba signs if he doesn't get an assurance from Messi, right? And we were talking here last week that if we thought someone was going to renew, it was going to be Jordi Alba and Lionel Messi. And it seems that way. I don't see Luis Suarez playing another year. And with what Busquets has said, I don't see him playing another year either. Another year either. So, I think it makes sense for Jordi Alba because we were talking about this last week. He is the one that puts on more performances. I can see him becoming. Jordi Alba should just stop being a defender and he could play until he's 40 if he wants. If he becomes a midfielder and goes up. And Inter Miami brings another defender to play in that spot, right, in that left back position, and I think he could make his career longer if he does that transition, because we're talking about Inter Miami's bad luck with defense and all of that, but most of the plays are because Jordi Alba is nowhere to be found, right, and it's just 3 defenders most of the time and players coming from the midfield trying to cover the hole that he leaves. But I think it's just a matter of time that Messi announces that he's staying. It's also for me curious that they announced Jordi Alba before Lionel Messi, to tell you the truth, and I could see also what other people or what people in Barcelona are reporting, that Messi wants to play in Barcelona from January from next year. I could see that happening also, but I could see Inter Miami maybe agreeing that Messi, like Beckham did, because Beckham with his second season he left and played with AC Milan, and then returned to MLS in June, right? maybe that that is what they're negotiating, and you could see that happening, that Messi gets to play with Barcelona before the World Cup and then comes to Inter Miami to finish the year.
Yeah, maybe he starts the year on loan with Barcelona. Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. I mean, he definitely maybe wants to playing at a higher level
Yeah.
to try to round himself out to form. Yeah, I mean, I thought it would just be Messi through 2026, but this Jordi Alba contract renewal to me points points to maybe Messi sticking around for 2 more years at the new stadium in Miami, as opposed to just 1 more year and closing it or calling it a career next season. We'll see what happens there, but obviously I would expect an announcement soon, probably before the Club World Cup, probably around that time, somewhere around that time I would expect, because season ticket renewals, coincidentally enough, the whole speech begins in June. Actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is information. Season ticket reps are already starting to reach out to try to pitch for next year, because if you're on the payment plan, I think it's a 10-month payment plan, that payment plan, the final payment is made in June. So after that, you got to start again for next year. So expect that Messi announcement to come in that time frame, is what I would imagine. It's what I had heard a couple months back. But curious that it might be through 2027. All the same, we will leave it there. It's been a long episode and it's been a late night. Andrea, I know you've got Figo to attend to. Jose as well. Jose's probably over there cranky like a baby, waiting for his midnight snack. So we'll leave it there. We'll be back next week at some point, hopefully early in the week, but it'll depend on the schedules. We'll see. If I doubt we can get all 4 of us on, but Alonso will definitely be in because he lives in Orlando and he'll be at the game. He owes us un pollo a la brasa. So I'm going to make sure he pays that on Sunday. I'm going to make sure he pays that on Sunday. But we will leave it there for now. Thank you guys, for all of you, for tuning in, leaving your comments, leaving your thoughts, your opinions. Thank you to Ajicita for joining us. She was spicy, but not super spicy. It was late night Ajicita. Maybe she's a little sleepier. She's, I don't know. It was calmer. You were calmer.
If he hears this podcast, he will hate me tomorrow, and he won't want to answer our questions because
Mascherano me cae bien. Honestly, I'm going to say that. Mascherano me cae bien. He answers the questions. He says it how he thinks.
He's very open to media. Let me say that. I have criticized him a lot in this podcast, but he doesn't shy away from speaking to media, and that is always good.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. I mean,
you have to be accountable, and media persons are the ones that get to ask that question and that direct contact with him for fans, right? So I commend him for that, and I applaud him for that, because
even though he doesn't always answer, like, he says a lot but doesn't
Yes.
He talks a lot, so doesn't say a whole lot.
That is just a Miami style thing.
Kada says thank you for your time. We will be back next week. Hopefully we'll try to get all 4 of us on. Maybe not. No promises. We'll see how we do. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Miami Total Futbol Radio, the show. We'll talk to you guys again next week.